Sean, it is not much, but there is something some of us are looking out for on this episode of Snow Search. I'm meteorologist Joe Martucci. Joined with me is meteorologist Sean Sublett at the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Sean, I'm going to show everybody our intro for Snow Search. We say we're looking for general trends. In this case, the week of February 19th. A very general trend towards maybe kind of sort of a little something. There's a signal there, but you're shaking your head no, and you know as well as I. It's just a needle in a haystack. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that really is the case. I mean, you could construct a scenario, as it were. The elements are kind of you look at the chessboard, the pieces are kind of close to where you want them to be in terms of storm structure, what we'll call the mass fields back in the day. But in terms of the physical temperatures, are they going to be cold enough to support snow? Man, it's really going to be a struggle to see if it comes to pass.
Yeah, and let's just take everyone a trip down a memory lane here. And Sean, what are we looking at in this graphic?
Yeah, so what we've got flat here, this is going to go by pretty quick, but the point of this is going back to the first part of November. We look at how the snow kind of waxes and wanes over the course of the winter so far. You have these little bursts of snow where it's on the ground for a couple of days, then it's gone. Each one of those frames is a day. So it just does not get here and stay. And I think that's really going to be the idea we have. Unfortunately, the rest of the winter for snow fans, we might have a little spell of snow here or there, but it is going to be awfully, awfully difficult to get anything that's going to come in, stick around and play in it for a while, especially now that we are getting into the middle of February, and it is particularly hard to get snow on the ground, to stay on the ground this late into the season because the sun angle is getting higher and higher all the time. During the dead of winter and early January, snow is on the ground. It'll stick around for a while because it's really hard to warm up. But this time of year just does not look like it's going to happen. That's kind of reflected in the temperatures in February when there's snow on the ground versus when there's not snow on the ground. When we think about this, it's not as big of an issue in the Northeast. These are the average temperatures in Atlantic City, Fredericksburg, all the way down to Raleigh when there is snow on the ground versus not. And you see huge differences here, anywhere from central Virginia all the way down into central North Carolina. Big changes, 10, 12 degree difference in those cases.
Yeah, and as you know, Sean, we say in the weather world, cold breeds cold or snow breeds more snow because of this chart right here. If you have snow on the ground, the science shows you're going to be much colder, even in Raleigh. I mean, Raleigh's, you're pretty far south there. Your average high is 41 with snow cover on the ground. You get another storm to roll by, you got a pretty good shot of getting some more snow in that next storm here. So, it's something, to the opposite effect, mild breeds mild, and that's kind of where we've been this winter. We'll take a look at our indexes. Last week was pretty bad if you like snow. This week's even worse. And when I say this week, we're looking at next week, so the week of February 19th, Sean. When you look at those red lines and that dotted black line, that's our kind of snow search period. So the North Atlantic oscillation is positive, less likely for East Coast cold and snow. Our Arctic oscillation, we're talking about the kind of the same story here. It's very positive, actually, during next week. So warmer storms, weaker storms as they come through. And that's because the jet stream, that's the river of air that separates two air masses about 30,000 feet high. It pretty much runs from west to east. We call that a progressive pattern. That's typically meaning we're getting warmer because we have milder air from the Pacific Ocean. And it's also meaning faster because it's moving from west to east. It's not going up and down, so that's tough. And then the Pacific North American Index getting negative here. We've been kind of straddling neutral for a while, Sean. That was kind of giving us equal chances. Negative is less likely for eastern U.S. cold. And, we look at the Climate Prediction Center 8 to 14 day outlook, Sean, and tell us what we got.
And that's exactly everything you would expect from those three indices that you showed before, all suggesting warmth east of the Mississippi River and cold to the west of the Front Range of the Rockies. And to be fair, this doesn't tell us a specific temperature above normal, but this tells us what the weather pattern will tend to support. The darker reds show much greater confidence or much stronger likelihood that you're going to be warmer than normal for this period. The a week from now and 1 to 2 weeks from now, compared to colder than normal in the western United States. So the weather pattern just does not favor extended periods of cold at all. A day or two, maybe, in the next 10 to 14 days where it's kind of chilly for the time of year. But in terms of locking into some kind of weather pattern that's going to give you temperatures at or below normal for 3 or 4 days in a row, which is kind of what you want to get snow, that is just not coming, is it, Joe?
Not really. I mean, like I said, we're looking out for one thing next week, but that's about it. And I feel like, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, because I've been noticing this. It feels like the week gets warmer as we go on. So from Monday through Thursday or Friday, we get this like late week storm, whether it's Thursday, Friday, maybe Saturday. And then the weekend turns out to be cooler or at least seasonable. You've been kind of seeing that down in Richmond?
We have. In fact, one of the things, I was looking at the temperatures in January. Most of January was warmer than normal. But we did have this series of Sundays that was cooler than normal. Now, a couple of those is just because it rained a lot. But like yesterday here, of course, we're recording this on Monday the 13th. It rained all day here on Sunday the 12th. Right. So our temperature didn't get much past about 40, 42 degrees. Normal high is 51. So clearly that's going to be colder than normal. But we didn't get any snow out of it.
No, if only it was a few degrees cooler, Sean, we would all be cashing in. So let's take a look at our upper level pattern. This is a few thousand feet above our heads. You see a lot of high pressure, a lot of those warmer colors on the 19th going into the 20th. Remember, high pressure spin clockwise. So if you get a high pressure off our coast, off the East Coast, that means southwesterly winds. Now, as we go into the 21st, we get a low pressure system to kind of move through Nova Scotia. You try to get a little bit of cooler air getting into at least, let's say, New Jersey or PA. And then watch what happens with this other low pressure system on the 22nd. It's going to move somewhere through the mid-Atlantic. Keyword somewhere. Now, if you like snow, you want this to pretty much move as far south, so like, North Carolina, and then cut up north. Even if you take this verbatim and the low pressure essentially moves from like Kentucky into New Jersey, if you're me and you're in New Jersey, you will get some snow out of this. Sean probably wouldn't down in Virginia, and definitely not in North Carolina. But it is showing a path where, we get a little bit of cooler air to settle in later part of the week, 23rd to the 24th. Storm system comes by. Can we squeeze out any snow with this? This is the map that we showed you at the top of the show here. Let's just put a few labels on this to show you what we're talking about. Green, as you probably could imagine, that is all plain rain. That includes, Richmond. But we look at those blue areas, Roanoke, into some of the Appalachian Mountains, Hickory, Atlantic City, South Jersey, PA. We'll go with a low risk for measurable snow during this time. It's better than nothing, but it's something we'll just keep an eye on, Sean.
I had a colleague of mine up in Charlottesville, Jan Dutton, who was in graduate school with the Penn State in the 90s. And he does a lot of this longer term forecasting like Judah Cohen does. And he said, it just looks more and more likely we're going to go through and get a snowless winter here in Charlottesville for him. And that would pretty much mean the same thing in Richmond and perhaps even the Roanoke Valley areas as well. It's going to be tough. And I'm not willing to give up yet, Joe, but as we wrap things up, certainly warmer than normal again for this next 2 weeks, that late week possibility of some snow. And to be fair, there will be some colder days ahead here or there, but just not consistently cold.
Yeah. And I'm probably stating the obvious, but as we get into late February, especially March, below average in, March is not below average in January. It can still be below average in Raleigh, and the storm comes through and it's not going to snow.
It gets harder and harder and harder. I do remember, it was, this is 2023. So 30 years ago, what we called the storm of the century, my generation, that March system in 1993, which did the snow from Mississippi all the way to Maine. Those things can still happen. For me, in Richmond and in a lot of Virginia, I think once we get past St. Patrick's Day, that's when I'm like, that's probably it. I don't really kind of give up until after St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, and I'm kind of the same too here in South Jersey because we have the coastal influence. So that helps to moderate things, especially at night. So it's that South Central North Jersey divide, Sean. We won't get into it too much here, but I will say, as someone who worked in northern New Jersey before coming here, you would say winter was done maybe April 5th. You get down to Atlantic City, it's on the South Jersey shore, probably around March 20th. I mean, if you're snowing after that, it's probably not sticking. It might be what I like to call raining snow, where it could be coming down pretty good, but it's just not sticking, especially if it's during the middle of the day.
Yeah, harder and harder all the time. So, right. So what are you searching for otherwise as we close out this week's edition?
I'm searching for the cure to my cough because, Sean, I've had this cough for about a month, and I went to the doctor, got some.
You're
medication.
Not long COVID, are you, man?
I hope not. I haven't had COVID in almost 6 months. I don't think it's been that long with a cough, but it's definitely been a month. Started the middle of January. Now, last week. And the week before that, it was like 95% gone. I mean, it was barely there. But then Saturday came, I ran a 5K. It was part of this event that I was asked to be a MC for. And it kind of came back. So we will see about my call. But what about you, Sean?
I'm curious to see how the Winter Classic is going to be down in Raleigh. Because, I mean, they are going to be colder for Saturday. They're going to get into a little chunk of that cold air for Saturday. And you're a little more of a hockey guy than me, so I'm not going to pretend to know exactly how they set it all up. It's outside for sure, but I do wonder how much struggle there is going to be because they're going to be in the 70s in Raleigh this week for sure.
Yeah, so I know that they can play at night with air temps in like the low to mid 60s. But so, because they've done they did an outdoor game in LA. I think they even did one in Vegas, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
So I think it's Carter Finley Stadium. Is that right,
Yep.
Sean? Okay.
Yep.
And my Washington Capitals are playing.
Well, that's why I thought you would be interested because the Caps were playing the Hurricanes.
Caps are playing, so I'm rooting for them. I don't know what happens with the 70s and building the rink, though. I gotta imagine, though, Sean. Like I know, like Madison Square Garden, Wells Fargo Center. Sometimes they have basketball and hockey games on the same day, or at least a very quick turnaround, and they make it happen. So I think the ice is probably some kind of pre-chilled. That's my guess, and they piece it in. I don't know for sure, though. That could be a good Across the Sky podcast episode, though, Sean.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Turning those things over in a big hurry. So put that on the check mark for next time.
Exactly. So for Sean Sublett, I'm meteorologist Joe Martucci. He's at the Richmond Times-Dispatch. I'm at the Press of Atlantic City. This was Snow Search. We'll be back with you next Monday. We'll talk about, gasp, the last days of February into the first days of March. Sean, I feel like I was celebrating New Year's like 2 weeks ago.
It goes fast, doesn't it? And you know what? It only goes faster the older you get.
I guess so. Although I will say, in fairness, the first half of last year, they go by pretty slow for me. But who knows? We'll see. We'll chat about that next week, everybody. Take care, and thanks again for watching Snow Search.